This is the 2025 MG HS plug-in hybrid, which I think is potentially one of the best value plug-in hybrids available on the market today. This large family SUV kind of competes with the Kia Sportage, the Hyundai Tucson and the Ford Kuga, but undercuts them all by a significant amount of money, some cases over 10 grand cheaper. Comes with a great level of standard equipment and also a really smooth drive thanks to a very clever hybrid system. So I'm going to take you on a full tour of the HS today, walk around the car for you and take it out on the road to show you what I think. And if you're looking for a cheap way to get into one of these, check out my affiliate links in the description below for the best lease deals available. So then, the MG HS, this is the new model with a completely revised design, especially at the front end of the car. Now this is available in a petrol only model, which is a 1.5 turbo, which you can get with either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual clutch transmission from around £26,000, which is quite a low entry point for a car of this size. One thing I would say though is that 169 horsepower engine is a little bit coarse and will only get you around 38 mpg. I wouldn't really recommend the manual either, it's a little bit rubbery. But we're going to be focusing today on this plug-in hybrid model. So it has a 1.5 turbo engine also mated to a 2-speed auto, which is kind of reminiscent of the way that Nissan do things with their e-Force models, where it's mainly a generator for the battery power. It produces just under 300 horsepower and they say a combined range of 564 mpg, which of course is total nonsense depending on how you use your plug-in hybrid. I've actually been averaging though over 45 mpg with the hybrid system completely drained of its plug-in capabilities. In terms of performance, this one should do 0 to 60 in around 6.8 seconds. There's only 2 models to choose from and not really any options. So that standard SE model starts at £32,000 and has things like a dual 12.3-inch displays with Apple CarPlay, reversing camera, MG Pilot, which has all of your driving assistance stuff and lots of safety tech. This is 5-star safety rated, which is impressive at this price point. For around £2.5 grand, you can upgrade to the trophy model, which has heated seats, dual zone automatic climate control, power tailgate, 360 cam and an 8-speaker audio system upgrade. And to be fair, for that money, I would say it's well worth doing. This one that I've got here today is top spec. So it has the optional Hampstead grey paint, around £600, and £500 for the optional tan interior. But that positions it at just over 35 grand, and I think that's still quite a bargain. So let's take a little look around the car then. So this front end is completely new and revised for this new model. It's nothing like the previous one, which people used to say looked a bit Mercedes-Benz. You can see here we've got full LED lights at the front here. What you can see, you've got the little inscription on the side there, and also on this one as well you do have the side steps, which is pretty cool, and you've got like a carbon trim detail down the bottom here, which I quite like as well. It is a little bit dirty because the weather has been absolutely awful, as you can probably hear by the wind, but you've got these nice alloys. I do think MG are slightly let down by the alloy choices, because I do find that some of their alloys don't quite make the car look as good as it could be, especially on the new S5, and I do think it would be nice to have some larger wheel options, although I do understand why they haven't done that. And the back end here, you've got a light bar that runs across, which I'll put a clip in of lit up for you so that you can see exactly what it's like. And you can see that around the bottom you've got the carbon fibre style insert again that runs along the bottom edge here. No real fake diffusery or exhaust setup here, it's all quite subtle. I do also like the camera setup. You've got the camera on the mirrors here, and you now have this nice detail that runs along the side down to this section here. It's quite understated, but I think a lot of people will like that. Even from the side, it's just kind of a typical SUV, looks a little bit like a Tucson or something like that. And yeah, it gets the job done. I don't think it's going to win any design awards in terms of its exterior styling, but there's definitely some more offensive designs out there on the road, and I think in the right spec this can look quite nice. And talking of, when you get inside you'll see that actually the interior quality of this is very impressive. Let me know what you think. I'm very interested to see what you think about this design in comparison to some of its competitors. I do also kind of think that this front end now, with this light design integrated into that front bar, that kind of looks a little bit Lexus Toyota to me. So let's go on an interior tour then of the HS. You've got keyless entry, which is done on this push button. Sometimes there is a delay when locking it, which I find a little bit annoying, but the door feels like a reasonable quality. And as you enter, you see I've got this tan leather package which runs across here. I've got a nice kind of texture along here, and you also do get some squidgy materials along the top with some stitching, which is quite nice. Simple mechanism for the door and a reasonably large door bin as well. And as you get inside, you can see we've actually got a side step, which is really cool. I like that. And you've also got the electric seats in this trophy one, so you do have the 4-way lumbar as well, which is pretty good for a car of this class. A few basic controls down here, and then you can see some included floor mats, which I like in the MGs because they include this little swivel mount, which means that they don't go anywhere unless you unlock that. That's a really nice touch. As you can see though, this is a really quite nice interior with this tan. Normal cars just get the black. This is just an optional package, but I think it's well worth it, to be honest, in my opinion, but it might just be a spec that I like. So stepping inside then, what I must say is I do quite like the layout in comparison to MG's other cars. You've got a kind of dual 12.3-inch display situation going on here, which is quite reminiscent of stuff like, you know, BMWs and Hyundais of late, where it's all kind of integrated as one and you just have like a little gap in the middle here, which you don't really notice too much because it's taken up by the steering wheel. So it's quite a nice setup really. You do have the climate vents in the middle here, and there are some gloss black plastics, but nothing too awful. Start stop button down here, and as we look in the center console, you've got some cup holders, slightly awkwardly placed because they do kind of interfere with these vents here, so I would have liked them to be moved back a little bit, but not a deal breaker at all. Also, it's a shame that these are USB-A and not USB-C, but again, not the end of the world. Very simple shifter. You've got reverse, neutral, drive and park, and then you also have your handbrake, your auto hold, and also your hill descent assist. And in the trophy model you get a wireless charger here, and also a nice little cubby in the middle with this armrest. This armrest isn't height adjustable though, it kind of just stays static there, but it's okay. These seats I do like. The only thing I would say is, in terms of the support, they're kind of curved in such a way where I feel like I've not got much support on this upper section, as you can see, and also the headrest kind of protrudes my head forward, so I sit a little bit hunched, which is a shame because otherwise they are lovely and they're quite well cushioned as well, more so than a lot of other cars which have now gone down the really firm route. So some people might be pleasantly surprised by how much cushioning is in this model with this leather. I also like how on the glove box it's just a button rather than a handle. I don't know why, I just think it's a nice touch, and this is one of the better glove boxes I've seen in this class as well. And you do have a nice sort of gloss black accent that runs along there, which is nice. And the materials on the dash are squidgy. You've got some kind of nice soft touch materials up here. This is all the leather. This is plastic, but it doesn't feel too cheap. And the center console, solid, really solid. Quite impressed with that. Down here you do have some cheap nasty plastics, but it's to be expected at this price point especially. But overall the driving position is really nice, and I can get my elbows to rest where I want them to be. This steering wheel is also nice. You've got a kind of a D-shaped flat bottom, flat top, and you do have some physical buttons and toggles. The ones on this side are mainly to deal with your cruise control, and there's a button there to do like the lane keep assist and stuff. It's not as good though, unfortunately, as in the Hyundais and Kias where you press the button and it will just steer itself automatically with no fuss. I wish it was that simple. On this it is a little bit more complex, but it does work well. And then on this side you have some controls here which do your, so this does at the moment volume up and down and track skip, but you can select these two star buttons to pre-program something different. So at the moment I've got the left one set to change the regen braking setting from low to high, and the one on the right here is set to change the drive mode select, which is on the trophy models from comfort, normal and sport. So you can change this however though to the climate control. So if you want to control the climate controls and temperature and fan speed with this toggle, you can customize this button to do just that. But personally I like it how it is, and this just controls my media functions. These are a bit of a letdown, these stalks. They do what they say on the tin. You've got that over there, and then if let me just turn the car on so I can move the wheel for you. On the left hand side you do have just your standard indicators, which I don't like this tinny sound that it produces. I really dislike that. I think it really makes it sound cheap and nasty, and these aren't particularly nice either, but you know, you do have to cut corners somewhere. And talking of cutting corners, I think the main places I've cut corners in this car, thankfully, is where you don't really notice them. So up the top here, for example, there's no sunroof, which definitely helps cut down on cost. And this here, you can see, flexes horribly and feels cheap and tatty and miserable. And to be honest, I do not care one bit because I'm not looking at it, I'm not touching it, and all of this stuff is nice. So you also get this kind of frameless auto dimming mirror, which is nice. You can see though how the visibility out the rear is quite difficult. You've got a massive C-pillar that you can't really get around with a big blind spot, but thankfully there are blind spot monitors just on the mirrors just there, but no fancy cameras for that. This thing that you see here is actually an infrared sensor, and what that does is projects an image onto me that basically tests whether I'm paying attention or not. It's like the driver attention assist, and if you look away for too long it will prompt you and say you need to focus on driving, which is a good feature, but it is a little bit annoying because when you're fiddling around with this, and it is a little bit fiddly at times, you can find that it interrupts by saying that quite a bit. There is tilt and telescope on the steering wheel as well with a manual adjustment, which is good, and I just think it looks modern and nice overall. and you do have some physical buttons along the top here. So I've got hazards, you've got the defrost and demist, you also have climate control on and off, and the home button. The home button will get you back to this screen, which is effectively your main infotainment display, and things kind of work as you'd expect them to. Like, there's things in here for your like convenience stuff, like your position memory for the driver, and also the MG Pilot stuff will show you your speed limit recognition. The speed limits bong in this is really loud and annoying, and it's a shame that there isn't a simpler way of turning it off like there is in the Volkswagen Audi group cars now and the Hyundai stuff. You do have to come into this sub menu and turn that off, which is a little bit irritating, but kind of is what it is. The cluster, however, you can see here, so the main theme is the speed theme, which just shows you as it is, but there is also intelligent drive, which changes it to so you get a map on the left, and then in the middle you'll have like your road markings, a bit like on a Tesla. And then there is also a full map mode, which I really like as well, which actually does genuinely show you your full map cluster, which is similar to in sort of higher end cars from Volkswagen, Audi and so on, which I quite like. I think that's a really good idea to have that integrated, especially on a car of this class in the lower end segments. There's also a section on here called Instrument Immersion Mode, which when you toggle, it gets rid of all of the clutter and faff on the display and just has the full map. So that's nice if you're not too bothered about your economy and stuff like that. And there is also lots of customization as to what you want to display on the information segments of the display as well. So I'm quite impressed with this level of customization. It's not quite Volkswagen Audi Group level of quality or customization, but it's a lot more than I see on most other cars in this segment for sure. Heading into the 360 cam here, you can see it is pretty good. That is my bag, by the way, that's not anything random, but you can also toggle to switch between the different cameras. If you want to look forward, you can look at the sides to check where your wheels are. It's all quite decent. Definitely not best in class, but pretty good, and it's included as standard on the trophy model. And then you also do have shortcuts down the side for different bits and bobs, and of course Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, as you would expect. The only thing is, when you are in Apple CarPlay, the climate controls are not visible apart from on or off. So the one thing I would say is head into your climate controls, set it up how you like it, and you can either have it customized as a toggle here so that you can control it here, but that is a bit fiddly and I don't like it too much. So I would rather just set it and forget it. So 19 on and off with this button, job done. And I'm happier with that than having no button at all. The fact that there is an on-off button is way better than having nothing at all. So I am actually really impressed with the level of quality in here in terms of both how it looks, feels, and the way everything interacts with each other. I was also expecting there to be a lot more creaks and rattles and groans. There is, however, a bit of a whistle from behind the dashboard when I'm going at higher speeds. It sounds a bit like something to do with the air conditioning, but I'm not too sure. But that's the only quality complaint I really have in here. Overall, I think they've done a really good job at this price point to make it look and feel premium and be as ergonomic as it can be, considering the level of tech on here. But I would just say, if you're looking for an absolute tech fest, something like a Hyundai or a Kia, even though more expensive, will have additional cameras, additional features in the infotainment, and just be a little bit less clunky to use overall. Let's have a little look in the back here. You can see that actually you do have a reasonable amount of space for your legs, especially as this transmission hump certainly isn't the worst that I've seen in a car, and you do have your climate vents and charge in there, and a middle armrest with some cup holders. You do also have some ISOFIX points, which are squidged between the seats, as you can see. Not the best solution, but they are nicely hidden and there's no covers to lose. And you do also have to lower the seats from here as well. There's no way to do it from the boot. So then, stepping into the back of the HS, things are pretty plush back here. Like I said before, these seats are actually quite nice and cushioned. You can see there's quite a bit of squidge to them. I would like a little bit more thigh support, and there isn't really any adjustment to these seats back here. There are some rivals which have kind of sliding forward and back and some recline. This unfortunately doesn't have anything of the sort, but this seating position in front of me is set up for me at 6 foot. As you can see, I've got plenty of room here to stretch my legs out a little bit, and also there's not really much of a transmission hump in comparison to a lot of other cars, which does help if you do have a middle passenger. The space in the back is pretty good. I've got plenty of headroom for myself, and also I can kind of get my legs crossed and get comfy if I want to as well. There's plenty of space back here in terms of width if you're just traveling with 2 passengers, and so I can get myself a nice comfy position, and I'd be pretty happy back here for a long journey. It's definitely not going to blow you away in terms of versatility compared to its rivals, but it certainly could be a lot worse. So heading into the back, you do have power tailgate on this trophy model, so I just hit the button and it will motorise open, and This isn't game changing in the back here. Again, you've got a bit of a lack of versatility compared to some key rivals. However, you do get a nice flat load lip, as you can see. This is a lot better than most cars in its price bracket, because most of the cars in the price bracket are the class below and they are smaller. So this is still up there with stuff like a Kia Sportage and that kind of thing. It's not far off at all. You've got a retractable load cover, which is nice and easy to use and to remove. You do also have a bit of underfloor storage for your charging cable and such like, but unfortunately there is no adjustable boot floor. You do have some side pockets here though, but like I said, you do have to go round and put these seats down from the side, which I will do now. It is quite straightforward. It's just that it's a shame there's no way that you can reach in from the boot and do it. Another good thing though is when you do so, the seat belts do stay out of the way, so when you put them back you don't get that snag, so it's easy to do with one hand, which I always do appreciate. So nice and easy to lower that, and then I'll head around the other side and do that one as well, and you'll see that we do create then quite a nice flat load area in the back. So with that lowered down, it's really light and easy actually, this, compared to a lot of other cars. And like I said, the only downside is that you do have to come around and do it manually. But if you're happy to do that, then actually it is quite straightforward. And you can see we do have a nice flat area here. You do get a slight slope going up those chair sections, but overall, you're going to be pretty happy with the amount of space that you've got in here. And once again, what a breeze to just put these back up. No snagging on the seat belts, clicks into place, no faffing about at all, lovely. Just don't expect it to be full of tricks such as power outlets and tie hooks and things like that, like some of the Korean rivals and cars that are slightly more expensive. It's also worth noting as well that a Peugeot 5008 would have a 40-20-40 split versus the 60-40 in this one. With that all sorted, let's take it out on the road and see how she drives. So out in the MG, I'm going to put it in its sportiest setting, into drive, and we're away. And 60. Not bad. You do feel a lot of electric torque, electric shove. Like I said, with this drivetrain, it's not quite the same as the MG's self-charging hybrids. This one is more akin to something like an E-Force Nissan, where it basically uses the electric motors for the drive and the engine kind of acts as like a generator almost. And you can tell because it does recharge kind of quickly, and the regen braking is very good as well. And you've got two different settings for that. You've got low or high, which means that you can kind of dampen that effect to make it feel more normal if you want to, which is quite a nice touch. And there is a bit of wind noise in here as well, and a little bit of road noise, but it's not as bad as I expected it to be in this class of car. It's just not anywhere near the level of refinement of some of the stuff from Kia and Hyundai now, but that is a lot more expensive. You're looking at 10 grand cheaper in some instances for something like this, even with all the bells and whistles attached. Because you never really hear the engine kick in, you don't really feel it either, and it makes for a really nice and smooth driving experience. I've never once felt like I can hear any real noise from this car. It's always kind of got that electric car feel and very smooth linear power delivery. It definitely doesn't feel quite as powerful as that power figure suggests though. I do have to say that it's not quite as impressive in terms of the acceleration as I'd hoped. But then again, for your day-to-day family needs, it's brisk enough, especially out of junctions and stuff like that. It's quite immediate with the pickup. There's a small delay to the throttle response, but not as bad as in some of the other MG cars that I've tested. It is worth mentioning though that in this plug-in hybrid model, the suspension is firmer than in the standard ICE version. Yeah, I wouldn't say I recommend that ICE version, to be honest. That engine is quite gruff, quite difficult under load, and the gearbox isn't the best at all. But this plug-in version is a different experience completely. The brakes do quite a good job of regen, but they do feel a little bit spongy under lots of pressure. So I would beware if you're going to go chucking it into a bend, but it's definitely not as sharp as I would like, and then it can be a little bit grabby around town sometimes, but it's definitely by far and large not the worst that I've experienced for that in terms of plug-in hybrids. So actually for the price point, I wouldn't complain at all. And I'm now hustling it down this road in sport mode. The sport mode definitely makes everything a lot more responsive, but personally I prefer driving it in the standard normal mode. Yeah, brakes are not quite as responsive as I would like. Let's chuck it in here. A little bit of body roll, but not too much. And you do get a little bit out of the junctions, you do get a bit of wheel spin from those front tyres. Being a front wheel drive car, it is a bit susceptible to that, but yeah, it's okay. See a bit of wheel spin through there, but it's not the worst I've experienced. Some cars get really unsettled, but the weight and the way that this is composed actually is not too much of a big deal. In terms of steering feel, it's definitely not up there with the likes of the Sportage, and especially not the Cougar. I think the Ford Cougar in this segment is probably the most engaging drive. But for day to day, again, I really don't think you're going to be making any complaints at all. It's refined enough because of the fact that you never hear that engine kicking in, and it feels like an EV. For all intents and purposes, almost all of the time you're driving it, it feels like an EV. Even if I plant it at low speed, you know, if I'm pooling around town like this, I'm currently doing 25 mile an hour, and it's, you know, really like quite pleasant and smooth, and there's pretty immediate power delivery when I do that. And the shortcut buttons on the steering wheel do make it handy as well to switch into the more comfortable and calm modes when I put it back down into normal. The throttle response is still there, but it feels a lot more subdued. It feels like the regen braking is less intense, and of course I've got 2 modes that I can toggle on that as well. To summarise then, it doesn't feel as well tightly put together as a Volkswagen Audi group car. It doesn't quite have the tech of the Kias and Hyundais, but it also doesn't have the driving dynamics of the Ford. And that all sounds quite scathing, but actually I don't think it is at all, because I don't expect it to do any of those things at this price. When you consider the one I'm driving here is completely top spec, it's got every option ticked, everything you can get, best drivetrain, everything, and it's just over 35 grand. That's less than the entry point of a lot of those other cars. So you can't expect it to be perfect at everything, and you get a 7-year, 80,000 mile warranty as well. MG also do say that they're going to bring the standard self-charging hybrid to this model as well, which is something that I've raved about in other reviews. So this one has the 2-speed auto, the self-charging one has a 3-speed auto, and does involve the engine a bit more in the driving experience. But if you go and check out my review of the MG3 or the MG ZS Hybrid Plus, then you'll find that actually those are fantastic in terms of their performance as well, because they're over 200 horsepower in those configurations, and most of that comes from the electric motor. So you find that it's a very smooth driving experience, and still achieves over 60 mpg in most of my testing. And this one, talking of economy, of course you've got those really far-fetched figures that they give you at WLTP, but it really varies on what you're doing. But they do say 75 miles of electric range, and I got just over 70 miles of electric range, unlike in Volkswagen Audi group cars recently that have been quoting that but have only been giving me around 50 miles. So I've been quite impressed with that. The other thing as well to mention is that a lot of the rivals like the Tucson, the Sportage and the other plug-in hybrids, they all around the sort of 30 to 40 mile range. So this actually is a big improvement on that for a lot less money. You can go cheaper still and get something like a Dacia Bigster, but it's not going to be as plush as this in any respect. I'd like to think as a picky motoring journalist, I do have quite high standards. And to be honest, driving this around day to day for the last week or so, I've been perfectly happy with it. And if someone gave me one of these as my day-to-day driver, I really wouldn't complain that much. It's got just about everything I need. And yes, there are a few things that are a bit cheap, and there are a few things that annoy me about it. And yes, there are rivals that drive better, but this just does everything quite well. And the fact that I'm still achieving over 45 mpg with my mixed driving when it's got no charge in it at all means that even if you don't charge it or plug it in for a while, you're not really sacrificing that much. You try and do that in something like a Volkswagen Tiguan and the whole thing falls to bits. You end up getting 30 mpg instead, and it's just not acceptable. Plus you'll feel the engine kicking in and jerking you around all the time. You don't get that in this. It just feels like an electric car most of the time. The long-term reliability remains to be seen, yes I know, and it's not quite the most dynamic car in the world. You can see I get some body roll, but it does hold its own. I'd also, if you can afford it, recommend the tan interior option. It's not for everyone, no, but it definitely adds a little bit of class to this setup, and everyone who's got in this car this week has said how posh it looks in here. And let's be honest as well, 35 grand for this top spec model, but you're not going to be paying that, are you? After dealer contributions, and you know, you might find one on the forecourt for a few grand off or whatever. Let's say for a brand new top spec one, you might even be paying just 30 grand. And that's a really good proposition in my opinion, really good. I seem to get a lot of comments on my MG videos about the slightly patchy reliability and how people wouldn't trust owning one and that kind of thing, but they are improving, and I do encourage you to go and check one out, because like I said, there are a lot worse options out there, especially at this price if you're buying new. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks to MG once again for sending out the car. I really do appreciate it. If you're looking for a deal on one of these, check the links in the description below. And also please do like, comment and subscribe. It goes such a long way, you don't even know. So once again guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.